Wow, that's a wow. I mean, the idea, I mean, during the unfortunate health crisis, we saw a lot of governments taking steps that perhaps raise an eyebrow, and Australia did stand out. And I understand that there have been some cases, or cases are being on the process of being brought before the relevant courts because there are definitely some constitutional challenges. The idea that you can prevent a citizen from leaving or from re-entering, it does sound preposterous. And going back to what we discussing earlier, flag theory, it's definitely a case study for the idea of diversifying your lifestyle. So the idea really is that when a government perhaps overreaches a bit, and I'm not making excuses. Perhaps there was a good reason, blah blah blah. But when they do overreach, in our opinion, we at least have the option of saying, you know what, I'm going to take a time out. It was good. I'll see you guys in a bit, and you can go elsewhere. And so definitely, this, as if there was ever a story that would justify it, I think what you just explained definitely is. Now, you decided on Paraguay. What is the process for residency in Paraguay?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's one of the strengths of if you were to choose Paraguay as a solution. Effectively, you need basically 2 or 3 documents. So you'll need a birth certificate with something called an apostille. Should I quickly go over what an apostille is for your?
Please, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So how I like to explain it is, you can imagine you have all these different governments around the world. They need some sort of stamp to show that the government that the document that you're submitting to them from your home government is something that's acceptable and it's legitimate. So it's basically a stamp one government will put on their own documents so that it's acceptable by other governments around the world. So anyway, you'll need your birth certificate with an apostille, or if your country doesn't do an apostille, there's a separate process for that that's very similar. You need a clean criminal record check, again apostilled. And if you've been married or divorced, you also need that documentation with an apostille. So in terms of the documentation, it's really that. Now, where it can be a little bit restrictive is there's some passports that Paraguay easily gives a visa or is visa free. And it's very easy for those people to use those passports to come to Paraguay. There's other passports that Paraguay requires a visa, in which case the process can be a lot more difficult. Not necessarily the residency, but in getting people to actually obtain the visa to come to Paraguay to start the residency. So if there's ever kind of like a hard barrier in who can sort of come and who's going to struggle, it's in regard to the visa requirements. So they're the 3 documents, potentially 3 that you need. Once you have those documents, if you're using a place like me or another provider, usually we want scans of all your documents to make sure everything looks good. Once it does, you then come to Asuncion. We like you to spend, Asuncion is the capital of Paraguay, where we're based. We like to spend at least 4 days here. We usually only need 1 or 2 days to take you through to the government offices. We say 4 days just because it's South America. If there's a hiccup, it's good to have a bit of wriggle room to solve any issues before you need to leave. Once people have submitted their documents, they have 2 options. After that, you can effectively just start living in Paraguay from then on. The government will give you something called a bridging visa or a visa precaria, which basically means you can stay in Paraguay until your documents are ready. And then obviously when your documents are ready, you can start living. The other option is people can just return to their home country, in which case when the documents are prepared, we will send them to you via usually DHL Express. The average processing time from when you touch down in Asuncion and start your process to receiving your documents in your hand is about 2 to 3 months. And that's really it in regards to, I guess, of the process.
Super easy. And does your team look after Paraguay only, or do you cover other jurisdictions as well?
Well, I think for us, we really wanted to focus on Paraguay and do Paraguay really well before eventually we might consider other jurisdictions, but we're purely focused on Paraguay. We live here full time. Yeah, and I think it can give us a bit of an advantage over some people that they might recommend Paraguay, but really they're not here every day solving problems for people like we can be.
Okay, understood. And just to provide some comparison, so I'm actually next door, for those who didn't hear the beginning of that conversation, in Uruguay, in Montevideo. And the process for residency is quite similar, and I guess the neighbors it makes sense. So the apostille is, as Paul pointed out, a stamp or a system for mutual recognition of government documents that was established in 1961, the Apostille Convention, and part of one of the Hague Conventions. And so what that means is that I guess it helps other governments to know that what you're presenting to them is real, right? So they require just like Paraguay, apostille, birth certificate, police certificate from whichever jurisdiction you were last residing. But what's different in Uruguay, you require a certificate that showed that you've been vaccinated for all those childhood vaccines that you would have got, right? Okay. And so, but it's pretty similar. And, I just want to call out the vaccine part because the rest is straightforward. So I've been living a chunk of my life in the UK. So and everything is computerized. And so you got to print out. And that did present some challenges here in Uruguay. They didn't know what to do with it. So if you come from a system where everything is automated, like Singapore, where I've lived, or parts of the US or parts of Europe, it could be a bit challenging in terms of Uruguay versus Paraguay. But same thing, you come in, and if it is that you come from a jurisdiction and you're a citizen of, let's say, a tier A passport, you're not going to have a problem. But if you have a lower tier passport, a weaker passport, then you have to jump through some hoops in getting a visa to get here in the first place. And I guess that could be a challenge. But anyway, so you have the vaccine stuff. You go to a relevant medical practitioner here in Montevideo. They have a look at it. If they like it, they sign off on it. Then you go to the government office, you get an appointment, and they look at all the documents, and it's relatively straightforward. They give you, like you said in Paraguay, it's a sort of temporary document that gives you permission until some months later where they actually get the residency card thing sorted out. So, again, similar in scope from what I'm hearing and from what I'm understanding. So that's quite interesting.
So if you're a 6, 7, or 8-figure investor, entrepreneur, or business owner who needs a tailor-made solution from a qualified team of professionals, we can help you achieve the international lifestyle, the freedom, and even the tax savings you're looking for. Visit us at htj.tax and live that international life.